There's a moment, so fast it hides inside silence, so subtle it slips beneath your breath before you even realize you're breathing different. That moment, when someone throws a stone at your name, questions your character like it's on trial, twists your words into a shape they never had, and the heat hits your chest, you feel that old reflex waking up. Wait, let me explain. That's not what I meant. You've misunderstood. Stop, right there. Freeze frame, that's the trap. Not a loud one, not obvious, but the kind that eats your power from the inside out. Because in that moment, when you reach to defend yourself, you've already surrendered. Not your truth, not your logic, but your position, your frame, your gravity. See, people think defending themselves is noble, righteous, reasonable, but in this world, this brutal, unspoken game of energy and perception, it's not truth that moves people. It's presence, posture, psychology. You defend, you shrink, you explain, you bend, you justify, you kneel, and whether they admit it or not, everyone in the room feels it. They feel your apology, even if no sorry crossed your lips, because defending is a confession. It says, you're allowed to question me, and once you say that, you don't own the frame anymore. They do. You gave them the mic, you gave them the stage, and now you're dancing to their music. Let me be clear, this isn't about silence for silence's sake, it's about what silence does. Silence is not passive, it's a weapon. Wielded well, it turns judgment into confusion, it turns fire into fog, it makes people feel small, without you ever needing to lift a finger. The strong? They don't scramble to be understood. They let the misunderstanding sit like smoke in the air and watch who chokes first. Let me give it to you straight. You don't need to be understood. You need to be undeniable. That doesn't come from clarity. Clarity is for conversations. Control, that's for kings. And the king says little. Someone calls you arrogant. You want to say, no, I'm just confident. But instead, you breathe, you blink slow, and you say nothing. Now they squirm because they didn't come to win an argument. They came to watch you bleed. They wanted your flinch, your plea, your emotion, but all you gave them was distance. And that, right there, is when power shifts. Not when you win the point, but when you refuse to play their game. You ever notice? The most magnetic people in the room say the least. They don't perform, they don't explain, they don't even need to be liked. They hold silence like a blade behind their back. Machiavelli understood this before we even had the language for it. He saw it not as cruelty, but as strategy. Because every defense you make is a thread, and pull enough threads, the whole fabric of your presence comes undone. So here's the shift. When someone accuses, don't absorb it, don't reflect it. Let it hang. Let it echo back on them. Let them explain. Let them elaborate. Let them prove how hurt they are, how obsessed they are, how much space you take up in their mind. Because once that spotlight flips, once the crowd sees them grasping, they don't look righteous anymore. They look emotional. They look unstable. They look small. And you? You haven't even moved? Think about that. You didn't fight. You didn't resist. You just didn't flinch. And now the room is with you. Not because they know your story, but because your stillness felt more powerful than any story you could have told. This is how power is felt, not explained. Let me paint a picture. You walk into a room, someone throws shade, subtle or sharp. Oh, he's full of himself. She always has an opinion, huh? Everyone watches. Now here's your move. Stillness. Not the loud kind, not arrogant, just poised, unbothered. You don't dodge it, you don't swing back, you stand still. And in that stillness, you say everything without saying anything. Now everyone's not asking about the jab. They're asking, why didn't you respond? Did that even hit him? Is she that confident or just unshakable? In one pause, you flipped the scene. They're not watching the attack anymore, they're watching you. And that's frame control. That's narrative alchemy. That's the kind of gravity silence gives. Let me leave you with this for now. You're not weak for wanting to be understood, but don't mistake that desire for strength. Real strength is in restraint. Real control is not in the story. It's in the silence before the story's ever told. Next time someone throws a stone, don't throw it back. Don't dodge it, just let it fall at your feet. Let them watch you not care. Because sometimes the most Machiavellian move you can make is to make them feel foolish for expecting you to need their approval at all. Here's what most people never figure out. The moment you explain yourself, you validate the frame they handed you. And that frame, it was built like a cage. You step in thinking you're clearing your name, but all you're doing is decorating the prison they set for you. They say, "You're too cold," and you reply, "No, I just care differently." Congratulations. You just let them set the temperature. They say, "You're manipulative," and you start proving you're not. Boom. Now manipulation is the lens. See the trap? Even when you win the argument, you lose the frame, and the frame is everything. Because perception is louder than proof, it's stickier than truth, and it's more viral than facts. You could be the most honest, sincere, rational person in the world, but if you defend under their light, you're just a shadow trying to explain itself. So what do? You flip it, quietly, psychologically, tactically. Let them accuse, let the room watch, and instead of defending, you invert. They say you're arrogant? Smile slow, look past them, say, "Strange how confidence makes people uncomfortable." That one sentence just threw their sword back in their hands, but this time, the blade's facing them. You didn't argue, you didn't break posture, you made it about them. And here's what happens when you do that right. They blink, they stall, they fidget, they feel it. Not because you were loud, but because your silence carried force. Understand this, people aren't watching what's said, they're watching who controls the rhythm, the tempo, the room. And when you refuse to dance to their beat, you become the new music. Let's go deeper. You're at a table, meeting, family dinner, group of friends. Someone says something sharp, a jab with a smile. Here he goes again, always thinking he knows best. Now pause here. Everyone's eyes drift your way. They wait for the clapback, the defense, the laugh to cover it up. Don't give it. Hold. Just long enough for the silence to feel like pressure. Not awkward, intentional. Then tilt your head slightly. Scan the room, slow. Let your gaze sit still. Not aggressive, not passive, just still. Maybe you say nothing. Maybe you just lift a brow. Or, if needed, you drop one line like a scalpel. You seem emotional today. That's it. Short, quiet, deadly. Because now they look reactive, they look insecure, they are exposed, and the energy in the room shifts. See, power isn't loud. Power is presence. It's in how you don't move. It's in how you let others unravel themselves while you sit, unmoved, unbothered, almost amused. Machiavelli didn't need to shout. He watched, he waited, and when he did speak, every word hit like a move, not a reaction. That's the model. Stop reacting to heat. Start becoming the fire no one dares throw water on. Want another example? Let's talk business. You're in a meeting. Someone slides a subtle dig across the table. "I'm not sure that idea's really grounded. You always go big, huh?" Classic bait. Most people tense up. Their voice rises slightly. They over-explain. They try to sound smart again. But here's the move. Don't bite. Lean back. Let the silence hang. Then, only if you feel like it, nod once and say, "Let's hear your strategy then." Now who's under the spotlight? Now who's scrambling? You've flipped the entire table. Because now the energy's on them to perform, to validate, to prove. You didn't just dodge the attack, you made the attacker defend. And that is the reversal. We live in a world obsessed with response. Social media trained us to reply fast, react loud, clarify, correct, confront. But here's the truth no one tells you. Power lives in non-response. Power lives in what people think you might say, but you don't. That mystery, that uncertainty, that's the aura. And people respect the one whose silence feels like choice, not retreat. But let's take it even colder. You're in a relationship. Romantic, family, deep. Someone says the dreaded line, "You don't care about me anymore." Now here's where most people fold. They panic, rush to explain. "No, I do, I just..." Stop. Don't chase the feeling, don't validate the chaos. Instead, let it land. Let the weight of their words sit between you, heavy and unconfirmed. Then, calm as still water, say, "That's not how I see it." No flinch, no story, no defense. Now they feel unsure. They feel the echo of their own accusation bouncing back at them, because in that moment, you controlled the emotional rhythm, and whoever controls the rhythm controls the frame. This isn't about being cold, this is about being unshakable, unreachable by chaos, uninvited to the drama. And when you train yourself to hold that line, people around you shift, they recalibrate, because suddenly they realize you don't explain, you decide, you don't respond, you redirect, you don't react, you reframe. So next time someone throws a stone, don't prove you're not who they say you are. Make it clear you're not even playing that game. Because the person who controls the frame owns the room. And when you can master that, when you can make silence speak louder than any defense, you don't just win the argument, you end it before it ever starts. There's a silence that breaks people. Not the awkward kind, not the anxious kind, but the kind that stands tall, like it doesn't even see you coming. It's not passive, it's not avoidance, it's a decision. And when used right, it becomes armor. Most people don't know this. They think silence means you've got nothing to say. But power knows silence means you don't need to say it. And that difference, that's what separates a man defending his life from a man directing the show. Let's go there. Someone insults you. Not loud, not obvious, but a sideways shot in a room full of eyes. They say, she's not as real as she pretends to be. Or, he's always trying to act like he's above everyone. Now, watch what happens inside you. Your chest tightens, your mind races. Your instinct says, defend it, fix it, say something now. But pause. That's not your strength talking. That's your fear of being misunderstood. And here's the secret most never learn. Being misunderstood is not the danger. Being predictable is. Because if people know you'll always defend, they'll always provoke. They'll always poke the same bruise, get the same reaction, pull the same puppet strings. And every time you respond the same way, even if it's calm, even if it's clear, you become easier to move, easier to manage. But when you become unreadable, when your stillness becomes unpredictable, you become untouchable. Because now they don't know how to get to you. And when people don't know how to provoke you, they fear you. You want to know what breaks people? Silence with presence, stillness with gravity. You don't block them, you don't chase them, you don't retaliate, you disappear from the conversation, from the platform, from the narrative, and you let your absence be louder than any defense ever could be. Let them wonder, let them spiral, let them write essays trying to bait a response, while you say nothing, while you move like mist, uncatchable, unreadable, unbothered. That's not passive, that's psychological warfare, and it destroys the insecure from the inside out, because most people, they survive off feedback. Even in conflict, they need emotional validation. You upset me, they want you to care, they want you to chase closure, but when you don't respond at all, they wither, they post more, they talk to others, they escalate, and every new attempt makes them look more obsessed, more unstable, more weak. And you're silent, you're still, you're elevated. That's not just control, that's mastery. Here's a colder move. Turn their accusation into their confession. They say, you're arrogant. You say, interesting how confidence threatens you. They say, you're manipulative. You respond, only those who can't be influenced say that. They say, you're fake. You say, everyone says that once they stop getting what they want from you, now suddenly they're not the accuser. They're the exposed, because you made their insult a mirror, and now they're forced to see themselves in it. You didn't just dodge their attack, you handed it back with a signature they didn't expect. And that's what I call the turn of the blade. You don't block, you don't parry, you let them lunge, and let their own momentum pierce their own stance. Because here's the truth, people don't get destroyed by others. They get destroyed by their obsession with others. You don't need to fight someone to beat them, you just need to let them exhaust themselves trying to reach you. And that's real power. Let's go practical. In person, it's in your eyes. Don't dart, don't flinch, don't scan for comfort, lock gaze, or calmly look past them, not with hate, with indifference, in posture, shoulders low, breath slow. Let your stillness speak before your mouth ever opens. In words, when you do speak, make it short, make it surgical. You seem triggered, that's not how I see it. Okay? Think what you want. Time will tell. And then, nothing. Because every extra word is another brick you lay on their stage. And you're not building their platform, You're building your fortress. You don't owe anyone your innocence. You don't owe the world your side of the story. You owe yourself your peace and your power. You ever notice how the most respected figures don't explain themselves? They don't clear the record. They don't chase false narratives. And somehow, they're feared more for it. Why? Because silence, held correctly, creates myth. People start wondering, what do they know that we don't? What are they planning? Why didn't they react? And that curiosity turns into caution. And that caution, that becomes power. Not because you proved you were right, but because you made them feel you didn't need to prove anything. That's how you become something bigger than just innocent. You become untouchable. And in a world where everyone's shouting to be heard, the one who holds his silence gets listened to the most. Because in the end, power isn't volume. Power is stillness. Power is what people feel when you do nothing. And yet everything shifts around you. There's a game being played every time you walk into a room. Every dinner, every board meeting, every text thread. A game of perception, of who flinches first, of who sets the emotional tone before anyone else gets a word in. But here's what most people miss. You don't need to be loud to lead it. You just need to hold frame like it's made of iron. Because most people are just waiting for a signal. And if you don't give one, they hesitate. Let's talk real-world combat. You walk into a meeting, you've got ideas, you've got clarity, you've done the work. But someone, usually the insecure type, throws a subtle shot across the table. Another one of your bold ideas, huh? I guess we're dreaming again. Now freeze that moment. Everyone's watching, everyone's waiting. This is where most people fumble. They try to sound smart again. They defend their logic. They get pulled into the arena they didn't build. And the second you do that, you're not leading anymore. You're reacting. But the Machiavellian, he doesn't lean in. He leans back. He watches. He lets the room feel the tension. And then, if he speaks at all, it's with a redirection so sharp, it shifts the spotlight without even raising the volume. All right, let's hear your solution. Boom. Now it's flipped. Now the energy's on them. Now the performance isn't yours, it's theirs. And the more they talk, the more obvious it becomes. They didn't have a plan. They had a jab. And jabs look weak when they're not met with resistance. They just float in the air like insecure jokes no one laughed at. Same dynamic, different setting. Let's say it's personal. Dinner table. Group of friends. Someone says with a grin, "You always act like the smartest person in the room." And you know what that is. It's not a joke, it's a test. A subtle, public jab. And most people feel like they've got two options. Laugh it off and look weak. Defend yourself and look guilty. But here's the third option. The one they didn't expect. The one they weren't ready for. You pause. You lock eyes. Not hard. Just calm. And then you say, "Interesting take." Then you go back to your drink, your fork, your phone, unshaken. Now watch the shift. They start fidgeting. They try to walk it back. It was just a joke. They start looking for backup, for laughs that never come. Because the crowd isn't focused on the jab anymore. They're focused on your response. And when your response is poised, collected, done in one line, you win the scene. It's not just social dominance, it's narrative control. Now let's take this online. Digital war zone. Comments, tweets, posts, call-outs, drama, designed for reaction. Someone tags you, calls you fake, says you're toxic, says you're the problem. Most people panic. They go live. They write the 3-paragraph post. They try to clear the air. But you don't respond. You reframe. You don't say, "I'm not toxic." You post one line. Funny how people call you dangerous when they can't control you. Boom. You didn't defend, you didn't explain, you turned the accusation into a status badge. Now they look bitter, now you look unbothered. And the crowd, they start whispering, they start switching sides. Why? Because most people aren't convinced by evidence, they're swayed by aura, and aura is built by how you handle heat. If you stay cool, you become magnetic. Let's get surgical now. 3 tools you can use instead of defending. 1. Silence. Default. Cold, clean. Most powerful when you say nothing and let them unravel. Their words echo with no resistance, and the room starts watching them. 2. Deflection, redirection, shift the frame. They say, "You're full of yourself." You say, "Confidence upsets the insecure." That's not defense, that's a reframe with a mirror attached. 3. Precision cuts, sharp, short, undeniable. They say, "You're fake." You say, "I don't owe you authenticity." They say, "You think you're better than everyone." You say, "No, I just don't think like everyone." That's how you end a conversation without ever raising your voice. And here's the bonus. The crowd always respects restraint. They might not say it out loud, but deep down they know who won the moment. Because the one who doesn't flinch always feels like he knows something the rest don't. That's why the goal isn't to clear your name. It's to build a presence so strong, so unmoved, so intentional, that even your silence feels like a checkmate. The truth is, people don't stop coming for you because they understand you. They stop when they can't move you anymore. They stop when their words bounce off, when their shade doesn't dim your shine, when their audience starts watching them instead of you. That's the death of their power, not when you crush them, but when you don't need to, because they exposed themselves chasing a reaction you never gave. There's a moment when power becomes effortless, not loud, not sharp, not even intentional anymore. It just radiates, not from what you say, but from everything you don't say. That's what you've been building, not silence for silence's sake, but silence as an identity, as a presence, as a definition of who you are. This is the final illusion we kill. You don't need to defend yourself to win. You need to become someone people don't even dare to accuse. Not because they like you, not because they believe in you, but because they know it won't move you. You don't respond, you don't flinch, you don't explain. And that absence of reaction, that's what makes you untouchable. Because here's the paradox of perception. The more you explain yourself, the more alone you look. But when you hold still, when you stay quiet while others swing wildly, the world starts leaning in. They whisper, why aren't they responding? Why aren't they defending themselves? Wait, maybe they don't need to. And that is when the game turns. You stop looking like a target and start feeling like a force. People begin to defend you for you. Unprompted, volunteered. Because your silence makes the attack feel excessive, unfair, desperate. The crowd becomes your shield. The attacker becomes the fool. And you? You never raised your voice, never typed a word, never stepped off your throne. That's Machiavellian leverage, not reaction, reputation, not being right, being beyond question. Let's crush the last myth. You were told to protect your reputation, defend it, clarify it, fix it when it's attacked. But a good reputation, that's soft, fragile. It needs to be guarded, explained, polished. What you want is a strong reputation, one that doesn't need to be liked, one that doesn't beg to be understood, one that simply makes people hesitate before they try you. Because the truth is this, the man with a good reputation is loved, the man with a strong one is respected, and the one with a dangerous one, he's watched, carefully. That's where we land, not in defense, but in definition. You become known not by what you say, but how little you need to say. Because every time you stay silent under fire, you say one thing louder than words ever could. I'm not here to perform for your approval. You don't argue with noise, you don't negotiate with disrespect, you don't meet accusations with apologies, you meet them with elevation, you stand still, you stay composed, and suddenly they don't know what to do with you. Because when someone attacks and you don't respond, they become the only one sweating. And when they keep swinging, they start looking unstable, emotional, weak. It's not that you beat them, it's that you let them beat themselves, trying to reach you. Let me leave you with this. There will be days when it's hard. You'll feel that itch to explain, to set the record straight, to say, that's not who I am. But you already know. You don't need to explain who you are. You embody who you are. And when that presence is strong enough, people feel it before you open your mouth, and fear it even more when you don't. That's not arrogance, that's mastery. So here's your blueprint. Never correct insults meant to provoke. Let them echo. Respond to subtle shots with calm confusion. Is that how you see it? Use ending phrases, not opening lines. Noted. Okay, think what you like. Study your face, your posture, your gaze. Your stillness is your signature. Stop chasing reputation. Start becoming it. And over time, something strange will happen. People will stop coming at you recklessly, not because they understand you, but because they respect the aura you built from silence, restraint, and complete command. This is the final form. Not defensiveness, not bravado, not reaction, but an identity so clear you don't need to explain it. A presence so rooted you don't need to prove it. A name that carries weight, not because you defended it, but because you let others destroy themselves trying to shake it. That's real power, and it lives in you, the moment you stop living in defense.